Hi, we're Doug and Mary, a retired couple exploring North America in a Toyota Sienna, converted into a camper van. We take the back roads and look for hidden gems, tiny towns, overlooked treasures, and the occasional microbrewery. Last time we started our trip in Montana, saw an underground city, took a brief loop into Saskatchewan to see Grasslands National Park, found an eerie ghost town, and continued following the Missouri River east.
Just east of the Montana-North Dakota border is an historic leftover from the days when steamboats traveled up the Missouri and Yellowstone rivers. In 1913, the Great Northern Railroad built a bridge for its new tracks over the Yellowstone River, which allowed the passage of riverboats underneath. Other than the initial testing after completion, the lift was never used, since the last steamer went up the river over 7 years earlier. Right next to the bridge is North Dakota's only tunnel. Train traffic ran through the tunnel and over the bridge from 1923 to 1986, at which time both were abandoned by the railroad. The bridge is now on the National Register of Historic Places.
The 1,458-foot tunnel was a bit spooky inside, since it curves and you can't see either end from the middle. We and the pigeons scared each other as we exited the far end of the tunnel. Then after walking through, of course, we turned around and went back through the other way.
Are you a tunnel rat? We continued on through North Dakota's oil country. The western part of the state is the third largest oil producer in the country, and pumps and drilling rigs are rarely out of sight. This is a Cold War relic. Fortuna Air Force radar station. And now it's a giant birdhouse. Fortuna is now a town of 30 people, but in the 1950s and 60s there were 10 times that many people assigned to this Air Force station, controlling a huge, state-of-the-art radar facility that constantly scanned the skies for the Soviet invasion. There was housing, an officers' club, clinic, theater, library, and gymnasium. The station operated for over 25 years. making, Mary?
Mac and cheese.
With what?
Tofu.
With tofu. And it's thundering. And the skies are looking nasty, so we need to get this done fast. And we're staying at a little tiny town campground at the fairgrounds. And they charged us $25, but we have full services, including water, sewer, which we're not using, of course. Electricity, so we're plugged in and we're charging up everything we can. And there's showers over there in the building. So we figured, okay, let's just take advantage of everything we got. And then we walked downtown, if you can call it downtown, to a little pub, talked to the locals, had a good time because it was hot. But their selection of beer was extremely limited. So far, so good.
In 1,000 feet, turn left onto Peace Garden Boulevard.
The International Peace Gardens is a 2,400-acre park that straddles the U.S.-Canada border, so you need to exit the border crossing station to enter the park, which was established in 1932 as a symbol of peaceful relations between the two countries. We walked through the memorials, exhibits, beautifully maintained plots of flowers, native plants, and gardens.
This is a 9/11 memorial here in the Peace Gardens. This is a non-denominational chapel with quotes of respected people from around the world and throughout time engraved on the stone walls, interspersed with fossils of previous eras. Many of these words are especially appropriate today. Mary even stopped for a minute to play the organ in the chapel. This is Rock Lake, Manitoba. And there's pelicans out there and people fishing out here. And this is the boat ramp.
We found a fishing spot and boat ramp to stop for the night. By nightfall, we had the place to ourselves. We picked up several bags of garbage from the area before we left in the morning. Please remember, always leave your campsite cleaner than you found it.
There is a piece of Minnesota that defies geographical logic. This is called the Northwest Angle. It is mostly a body of water called Lake of the Woods with a chunk of land at the north end, and it is not easy to get to. In fact, the only overland route is driving through Canada. It is mostly reservation land, and fewer than 150 people call it home. It exists because Benjamin Franklin and the British didn't know where the source of the Mississippi was, but assumed that it was west of Lake of the Woods and made border agreements accordingly in 1783. It is actually to the south, and it wasn't until almost 60 years later that an agreement was made to define the actual border at this location.
Somehow the road was both muddy and dusty, and it was all in poor condition. Most of the land area of the angle is only a couple feet higher than the lake level, and most of what we could see was wet and boggy. Mosquitoes were intense and relentless, on par with what we experienced in the Arctic. We were required to stop at a junction called Jim's Corner and report to American Customs inside a tiny building that looks like a bus shelter. Mosquitoes were just as bad inside the building, where we had to input data on an iPad for official entry into the U.S.
We drove the couple of roads which led to some tiny developed areas where there was a few residences, marinas, and fishing outfitters. Fishing seems to be the only reason to be here in the summer. There were some snowmobile trails through the woods, but they were impassable at this time of year.
The elementary school, with its single classroom and small activity area, is billed as the last one-room school in Minnesota. There are usually fewer than a dozen students.
There was a second border crossing here, so we called the Canadian Border Patrol for our scheduled return back to Canada.
We stopped to see Kenora, pick up some groceries and a Canadian SIM card, since our T-Mobile plan quit working again. Camping was a rest area, but it turned out to be a fairly quiet night.
In 1,000 feet, your destination will be on the right.
If you watch many travel vlogs, it seems like every day is an adventure. In reality, quite a bit of time is spent on mundane tasks like oil changes and other vehicle maintenance, getting groceries, water, gas, and doing laundry and finding a shower. Finding reputable locations for these services is even more of a challenge. Tim Hortons is generally a safe bet, as well as having good Wi-Fi.
On the south edge of town are some First Nations reserve gas stations, with prices about $1.50 per gallon less than on the highway.
In a quarter mile, turn right onto First Street.
Nipigon is a special town for us. Since the last time through, we made friends with some of the locals, and this time we found a couple of them back at the same marina campground.
Our 11th day on the road, and it has rained at least part of every day so far. Highway 17 on the north side of Lake Superior is blasted out of Canadian Shield bedrock.
Our campsite for the evening was a few steps from the beach on Lake Superior. The evening was calm, with few bugs, and a perfect sunset ended the day.
Ontario, Lake Superior. Say goodbye to it until tomorrow.
Join us next time when we find out that our inability to understand French puts us on the wrong side of the law. Again.
And then, in a few weeks, somehow we end up in France. But this time, we stumble upon the best selection of wine we have ever seen. Thanks for watching.